What's up guys, my name is Ace, and welcome back to another gun guide. This is the series where I go into great detail with all of the stats as well as some excellent attachment combinations for every gun in Black Ops 6. And in today's episode, we're going to be moving on to the AEK-973. And starting it off as always, let's get into our damage profile, and with this gun, just like with the SWAT 5.56, it's going to be a 3 to 4 shot kill, and it is a 3-round burst gun, so in that maximum damage range, it will be a 1 burst kill. And when it comes to headshots, just like with the SWAT as well, in the second damage range, if you land 2 shots to the body and 1 shot to the head, you can also get a 1 burst kill there. Whereas in the minimum damage range, you have to land 2 shots to the head and 1 shot to the body if you want to maintain a 1 burst potential. And once you start getting to those ranges, that just becomes really unlikely. However, if you use the CHF barrel, now in that minimum damage range, this is the only place where it really has an effect, you still only need 1 headshot mixed in with body shots for the 1 burst kill. As for our rate of fire, within each burst, this is 870 rounds per minute, which is very noticeably faster than the SWAT 5.56, and therefore it's much more likely that all of those bullets will hit since they'll all hit in a shorter period of time. However, our burst delay is very noticeably slower than the SWAT 5.56 at 335 milliseconds. That's quite a slow burst delay, which does make it fairly unforgiving. And what this means to our time to kill potential is with a 1 burst kill, we have an insanely fast time to kill potential at 138 milliseconds. And with that, unless it's a 1-shot kill weapon, there are really no guns that can reliably compete with that time to kill. That is insanely fast. However, like I said, it's unforgiving. The moment you require that 4th shot to kill and you have to wait for the second burst, now our time to kill shoots all the way up to 542 milliseconds, which is very slow for this game. As for rapid fire, this does increase the rate of fire within the burst up to 909 rounds per minute, and it very noticeably reduces our burst delay down to 295 milliseconds. That's still a fairly slow burst delay, but definitely a nice improvement over the base delay, and that just makes it a lot more forgiving if you don't get that 1 burst kill. Next up, let's get into our ranges, and as you can see here, our maximum damage range, or our 1 burst range, is about 34 meters, and that's not bad as a default range. And our bullet velocity is quite solid as well at 860 meters per second, which gives us a great hit scan range at 43 meters. However, we could boost that with the gain twist barrel. This gives us a 30% boost to our velocity. Or I personally prefer using the long barrel on this because that increases our 1 burst potential, which is very important, obviously. That'll give us a 35% boost to our ranges. Or if you want to mix of both, you could use the reinforced barrel, which will give you a 20% boost to your range and a 25% boost to your velocity, which even just that velocity boost is almost matching the gain twist barrel, and then you obviously get the range boost on top of that. So that makes this the clear choice over the gain twist barrel if you are trying to boost your velocity and want an extra benefit on top of that. As for rapid fire, this will be reducing our range as well as our bullet velocity by 10%, so definitely something to be aware of. And then finally for ranges, let's have a look at hardcore game modes, which as you can see here, this gun will be a 1-shot kill at all ranges. That's 1 bullet, not 1 burst. And therefore it's very good at getting really consistent kills, but that burst delay will really hold you back in hardcore. If you're dealing with multiple enemies, that's quite a long time between you killing one enemy and the next, compared to a full auto gun where you can just spray at both. As for Hipfire, we actually have the best Hipfire spread in the Marksman Rifle category. However, with this being a burst gun with a very unforgiving delay, the chances of you getting a 1 burst kill, for instance, even in fairly close quarter situations while hipfiring, is pretty slim, and as a result, I would generally try to avoid hipfiring whenever you can. And now let's get into recoil, and the AEK is incredibly accurate. Each burst is super tight. There's just a little bit of vertical recoil and just the slightest amount of horizontal recoil. Honestly, most of that horizontal movement is just the idle sway of the gun. And even with the CHF barrel, it maintains pretty solid accuracy, and it's a similar story with rapid fire. Sure, you might see a tiny bit more recoil, but really not that much. And especially in the case of rapid fire, which very noticeably cuts down on that burst delay, I would say this is an extremely good attachment that you should probably be using on most of your builds at least. As for our handling stats, when it comes to our aim down sight time, this is 325 milliseconds, which is slow, but for a marksman rifle, it's not that bad. You probably will want to use some attachments to improve that though, and our sprint to fire time is actually right around average for a marksman rifle, and generally speaking, you shouldn't be sprinting into gunfights too often with this gun. And then finally, with our slide to fire and dive to fire times, these are both standard for marksman rifles at 370 milliseconds and 450 milliseconds respectively. Then when it comes to our reload add time, this is 1.63 seconds, which is not bad at all. That's better than average for a marksman rifle at least. And generally, I'm just going to be sticking with the base magazine on this. However, if you wanted to, you could use either the flip mag or fast mag for faster reload times, but a smaller magazine capacity. Or you could go for a larger capacity with extended mag 1 or 2, but those will be slowing down your reload times. And this will finally leave us with our mobility stats, and across the board here, we're just going to be either slightly above average or basically right on average. It's really just not out of the ordinary at all for marksman rifles, and that is to say that it's not that great at getting around the map very quickly or strafing in gunfights really effectively, unless you're using attachments to boost those values. And speaking of attachments, let's now get into some excellent attachment combinations I've got for you guys. And the first one I wanted to share is my stealth build. And this one's designed more so for aggressive flanking playstyles. With this reason, the suppressor, obviously. We've got the long barrel combined with rapid fire, which will give us a net improvement to our range at 21.5%. We're also using the quick draw grip on this, which will give us the best possible aim down sight time from a single attachment at 245 milliseconds. And we've also got the combat stock on there, and the combat stock is going to be helping a little bit with flinch, which is nice since marksman rifles do experience higher flinch, and especially with a burst gun like this, you really can't afford to be flinched off target in the middle of your burst, so this is very helpful to have. And on top of that, the combat stock will improve our aim walking speed a little bit, which helps for the slightly more aggressive playstyle that we're going for with this particular build. Now it is worth noting with this one, since we are using rapid fire and we aren't using any attachments to help with recoil, we are seeing a little bit more recoil than you would tend to see with the AEK, and that does limit your potential at longer ranges, but as I said, this one's designed a bit more for aggressive flanking playstyles, so I'm generally not taking extremely long range fights with this unless I feel really confident. As for the second build, as always, I wanted to share a gunfighter setup with you, and with this one, I'm using the Willis 3X optic, the muzzle brake, which I found to be the best of the muzzles if you're trying to improve recoil. They're really all very similar here. You can't go wrong with any of the muzzle attachments for recoil. You probably won't even notice much of a difference. We once again have the long barrel on there so we can get the maximum one burst kill potential. We have the vertical foregrip to cut down a bit on that horizontal recoil just to make this as accurate as possible. Then we once again have the quick draw grip. This time we're using the heavy stock, which gives us the best possible flinch reduction at about 40%. We're using the target laser to essentially eliminate idle sway. And then finally, we're once again topping this off with rapid fire, so we have that more forgiving burst delay. And with all of this combined, we have a very accurate gun on our hands. This thing is pinpoint accurate out to most ranges that you would tend to use this for, especially if you're staying in your one burst kill range. And in general, this is just an excellent way to use this gun if you don't mind using that Gunfighter wildcard. However, many times I don't want to use Gunfighter, and I also want to be able to pick people off at longer ranges much better than my stealth build that I shared. So this is where my third build comes in. This is my balanced accuracy build. And with this one, we're using the Kepler Microflex, the muzzle brake, the long barrel, the quick draw grip, and the heavy stock. Now you'll notice I'm not using rapid fire on this, which means it is going to be less forgiving than the other builds, but that's now not harming our recoil at all. It's also not reducing our range, so we get a 35% boost total to our range with that long barrel, and that's just really nice to be able to maximize that one burst kill potential, because that's really where the power of this gun comes in, is with that one burst. So with this one, we're just maximizing on that. And you can see we have a very, very accurate version of the gun on our hands here, so it does make getting a one burst reasonably easy as long as you're feeling good with your aim in that moment. And I would say if I'm not using Gunfighter, this is the one I will actually tend to lean more towards. It obviously depends on the map. Sometimes I do want to stay off the radar or have that more forgiving burst delay with rapid fire, so I'll go with my stealth build. But more often than not, I would say I lean toward this particular build. And with that, that's going to wrap it up today's gun guide on the AEK-973. As for my thoughts on this gun, I love it. I think it's excellent. Even after the nerfs, I know it's not nearly what it used to be when the game first launched, especially with rapid fire. It was totally broken, and they did nerf rapid fire pretty hard since then. But even with that, I would say this gun is great. While it is quite unforgiving with that really long burst delay, I would say it at least has the power potential to justify the fact that it is so unforgiving. And honestly, I found a ton of success with this gun, even recently, after that rapid fire nerf from a long time ago. Now, of course, those are just my opinions, and I'd love to hear what you guys think about this gun in those comments down below. And if you guys have missed any of the previous gun guides, I will leave a link to the playlist in the description of the video. If you enjoyed this one, a like rating is always appreciated. And don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.